Hi there, and welcome to the Homestead Education Podcast. Do you have a homestead, farm, or just dream of a rural life? This is a show to help you and your kids grow your own food and grow as a person. I'm your host, Cody Hanner. I'm a homesteader, homeschool mama 6, and small town enthusiast. I was raised by an old school rancher and blessed by the grace of God to have been exposed to so much of what rural life has to offer. Join me every week to talk about homesteading, homeschooling, and growth with a homestead education. Hi, everyone. I have two guests today. I have Jenny Tetzner and Tina Hollenbeck from the Homeschool Loft and the Homeschool Loft Cast podcast, which is a resource center that they have in their town, and they support homeschool families through their podcast. So hi, guys.
Hi, Cody.
Hello.
How are you all doing today?
We're doing well. We're supposed to be having a blizzard and we don't even have rain, so we're fine.
That's awesome. I mean,
Yes.
I don't know about you, but I'm ready for spring.
Yeah. Summer. We're ready for summer.
Well, yeah, summer is really
Spring's
nice.
good.
Spring's when I get to
Yeah.
start gardening, so that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So you guys, tell me a little bit about yourselves. I don't know who would like to go first, or
Go ahead, Jenny.
Okay. All right. Well, I am Jenny Tetzner, mom of two young adult kiddos. We homeschooled all the way through and knew that it was fantastic and we should tell the whole wide world all about it. So we had a little bit of a idea to start kind of a physical location. Didn't really know what that was going to look like. And then Tina and I had a coffee meeting one day and we decided to start what's called the Homeschool Loft in De Pere, Wisconsin. And that's a short little nutshell story. Right, Tina?
Yeah. I'm impressed, Jenny, that you could summarize that well.
I've been practicing my Charlotte Mason narration skills.
There you go. Well, and so I'm Tina Hollenbeck, also live in the same area as Jenny, and my kids are almost 21 and almost 22. They are Irish twin daughters. And my younger daughter actually got married right out of high school. And so she and her husband live nearby. And I just started babysitting my 9-week-old grandson week as a new endeavor of my life. But
How
yes,
special.
I started, yeah, it was great. It's great. So, and my older daughter lives at home with us and most recently was a church secretary and is now in between jobs trying to figure out if she's going to go to college and what she's going to do next.
That's an important step in life.
What was that?
That's an important step in life.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Her original plans were blocked and weirded out by the pandemic. And so she's just been trying to figure things out the last couple of years and now, what's next. So, but yeah, Jenny called me up in March of 2021 and said, we have this space and you want to do something.
Yep.
That's so great.
The rest
guys.
is history. Yeah.
I mean, I love having I almost hate to use this word, but a brick and mortar place to go get support in homeschooling.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was one of our things we always joked about. Even before Tina and I had the discussion, my husband and I actually had the location that we were renting, knowing full well we wanted to do something. And my husband would joke around saying, you should, he's like, babe, you should just put you could cut out a little cardboard square and just literally tack it in the window and say, need homeschool help? And people would just be flocking over because there isn't such a thing at all.
There isn't. I mean, there's so much information out there, and what is reliable, what is really going to help you, or what's just going to stress you out and make it harder.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what happens at the Homeschool Loft.
Well, one of our main things is one-on-one consultations. So like Jenny said, she could put out that little sign. That's kind of what we did. We have a website and we started advertising around on Facebook and whatnot. But I think one of our cornerstone things that we do is allow parents to set an appointment with one of us, come in and have a chat almost as if we're their therapist. That's kind of what it has seemed like.
Really?
Sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true.
they come in and they ask us their questions about homeschooling, whether they're wanting to start and they don't know what to do, or let's say they've been doing it for a while and they're entering a phase, we're getting close to high school years or something like that, or they've been doing it, but they're stressed out and they're thinking about giving up. Whatever it might be, we tell them just come in and talk to us and we'll hopefully encourage you along the way.
Yeah. And to add to that, let it be said that before we hung our shingle, we didn't know all of this. We knew for a fact that, we were going to contribute to the community in this way. And, but right shortly after, right, Tina, or actually right around that same exact time that we opened up, the school system shut down. And so guess what? Welcome Homeschool Loft right at exactly the right time. And that was just a blast. So when Tina talks about this, I guess counseling type thing, I mean, we had some terrified parents who homeschooling was brand new idea. They were coming in desperation. And so after decorating the loft so nicely and perfectly, Tina, it's okay if I say this because it's great. Tina had this brilliant idea. She put the Kleenex boxes out, not knowing, right, that just as a part of the thing.
We're just decorating. I'm not the decorator. That's how I decorated.
Yeah. These polka dot Kleenex boxes totally are not going to match the decor. And guess what? Didn't matter because we use those Kleenex boxes are a prime centerpiece at the Homeschool Loft. Let's just say that.
I could imagine that. There has been days I have been in tears homeschooling. And I mean, we've been doing it for 7 years, but I also remember the tears I had driving to the public school to deal with my son who was having a meltdown or something. So
yeah, absolutely.
Choose your hard.
It's a parent thing.
It. Yeah. But in addition to the consulting, Jenny really is kind of the queen of book clubs. So she offers pretty much for the whole entire time, almost every week on Tuesday, she's offered a mom's book club. And you can talk more about that, Jenny, but she's had different books that she's gone through with whoever shows up. And that's like a group therapy, right?
Yeah.
I would say. For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, reading is where we begin, I think, with all things in life, right? We want to know, so we read. And for whatever reason, I could name a few, it seems that reading is not as mainstream as one would think that it ought to be. And so we have just on Tuesdays, we have what's called Lofty Readers, and it's a chance to just have mothers meet. I mean, it's been moms, it could be dads, but it's been the moms. And we get together, we have, little snacks and coffee and tea, and we read together. We discuss books, we talk about it. And in this is something that, as a busy mom, Cody, right? Like super duper busy. Sometimes we have all the books, but we just don't read them.
And when you feel like you have to get like almost a homework assignment, you feel, I don't want to say obligated. That's the wrong word. There's accountability for you to get through it.
That's right. And it, our whole thing was we have a little resource shelf of books, parenting books. And Tina and I always joke around like, now finally we're reading them. Our children are grown, graduated from our home schools. And guess what? We just want to implement that with parents to say, be reading. You don't have to read the whole book. If it takes you a year because you only read a sentence a day, do it. Keep moving forward. What's that?
I said, speaking of tissues.
You got your big,
Cody just
big box there.
Yeah, I was like, I need something.
Are we making you cry, Cody?
No, I'm bleeding.
Oh, don't smile.
Right.
So with that, we have the book clubs for the moms or the parents, but we also offer family book clubs where we put out through email, we talk about on our website what book we're all going to be reading. And then each family does that at home with their children.
Oh, that's
and we give them some time to read that. And then at the end, about 4 to 6 weeks later, we kind of bring that book to life. So we plan an event for families and the whole family to come and just have fun, bring the story to life. So far, that's been a huge hit because it's with the kiddos and the parents, and it's all things reading and
Right. I love that. I was in a book club a little while ago and I absolutely loved it. It was for entrepreneurial moms. And it was,
nice.
we'd meet at different coffee shops and just chat. And I looked forward to it every week. I've met some of my closest friends locally now. And then there is another mom in town that started the first book they did was Mama Bear I always say it wrong. Mama Bear Apologetics. Mm-hmm. And now that's just what they call their group, but they're on to other books now. And I haven't got a chance to make it to that one yet. It's always on a night I have a 4-H meeting or something, but I know how drawn I am to that. And maybe that's because I'm a nerd, but
Yeah, you are, because you're a homeschool mom. And you know what it is too, is that oftentimes moms it seems that we always put ourselves last, right? We're so busy about what are we going to teach the kids and what resources will we use to teach the kiddos, when it needs to be with us as well. And then even just meeting other moms in the area, I think that's a great thing. So many friendships are formed through books,
That's why the whole theme of my podcast is keep growing, because after my last baby and the postpartum I went through, I totally forgot to light my own fire.
That's so true.
And so I've really, while still being a good mom, focused on me. And I don't think, well, maybe my business a little bit has left my kids flailing in the wind some, but I think they're also getting to travel with me and see things that they never would have seen before. So
sure.
So I really love that you guys are moms that have made it and come out on the other end.
Tori.
Because I'm just now hitting my teens that they're in that transition period, and I have my moments where I'm concerned.
Yeah. I remember the days.
One of the things I think is important to remember, and my kids aren't ancient, they're only 20 and 21, having their birthdays in the spring.
Same with mine.
But we don't need our kids to know everything that they ever need to know for their whole lives by the time they're 18 years old.
Yes.
Yeah. I think we feel like, we've got to pour all this so that when they launch, they can just start. No, that's the first step.
Yes.
We need to get our kids ready to step out into the adult life that seems like it's there at the moment. My older daughter was going to go to a Bible college and then be a missionary in Japan. But guess what? COVID hit, and it tore everything apart for her. So then what we had to do, she had planned for 4 or 5 years, and we were ready for that. But then, the world went crazy and we've had to plan for a different thing. But she's fine because she had strategies and tools and support from my husband and myself, and she's doing great.
I love that, Tina. Because isn't that a thing? I think that's where the shakeup in our mind as parents happens, is that we think, first off, that we're the all-knowers, right? And we have this humongous body of information that we need to spill upon these children so they can, let's hurry up. We have 18 years to pour all of this into you. That's so not humanly possible. We don't know everything. And so they have the whole rest of their lives, as do I at 50 years old. I'm still learning. Guess what? Things that maybe the public school would deem you ought to know that then, that's not really real. You have your whole life to learn. And when we have that mindset, it just frees us. It frees us to know that it's okay. It's not the end of the story at 18, or it's not the end of the story, if they don't get something in 6th grade in math, it's okay. They might get it when they're 70. Who cares? And that is freedom. Even like Tina, what you're saying about Rachel.
Yeah.
That was really an introduction. I mean, what a great next chapter of the learning, right? You had plans, the plans didn't work. Now what? Right? That's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm I'm actually a really strict when it comes to the core learning subjects that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And people looked at me like I was crazy when we took a year off of math.
Yeah, of course they did. Mm-hmm.
My kids needed it.
Yeah.
And now they had, when we first started homeschooling, these two were in second grade. And so I tested them to see where they needed to be in Saxon, and they tested it like sixth grade math. And their brother was in sixth grade at the time. So it was like, oh, it's perfect. I'll just do everybody in the same spot. And they moved on up through. And in sixth grade, they started algebra. And I was seeing some gaps, not in their ability, but in their foundation building, because they had kind of missed a few years. And so we took a year off of official math. I downloaded IXL on their tablets, and every few days I'd be like, do a little IXL, and just had them work through some of those core things. And now they're doing algebra again in the eighth grade, and they're doing great, which algebra in the eighth grade is not behind. So
yeah, well, here's the reality. If we had the door knocker come over right now and said, Jenny Tetzner, we're going to test you on math, let me tell you something, they're going to find some gaps over here.
Right.
And I don't care. Like we go after what we need and what we want, don't we? That is how humans learn. And so again, that's freedom.
Both my twin, the 14-year-olds that I'm referring to, they both want to be science majors. So I'm like, okay, let's buckle down on the math and science, and we'll work through the other English stuff and writing that you guys struggle with.
Well, and that's the thing. I was going to say, there is no behind except for the ones we sit on, right? In homeschooling. If your kids are called to science careers, for sure, they're going to need a lot of math and they're going to need a lot of science, but they have an interest because that's what they want to do, right?
Exactly.
Amen.
Neither of my daughters had any interest at all in math or science. And so guess what? We did algebra to introduce them to it. We did geometry because I think that's kind of an important thing. But it was kind of like algebra and geometry light in a sense, because those particular kids just needed an introduction to what those concepts are. God did not call them to math and science careers, and so therefore they're not behind. We spent our time on stuff that they needed.
Yeah, I don't think we have read a single literature book in our house.
And that's all we did.
And that's what we did. Well, see, that's the thing is what you will do, what we all do as adults, is we do what we love. We do our interest, right? And what that interest is, we keep going after it because of that. Nobody needs to hound me to go to the Homeschool Loft. I love it. It's what we do, right? It's my passion. And so I research and I learn and I talk with all the people to get the things. And so that's what the children need. They just need some good ideas and then run with it. What is it that they want?
Yeah. At co-op the other day, I had a mom follow me around asking me homesteading questions. And she's like, I listened to your podcast and I know you technically charge for some of this coaching, but I just had a couple of, and I was like, stop apologizing. We're friends. You're my people. Ask me all the questions you want, because I guarantee you I'd want to talk about this anyways. So
that's right. Yeah, that's good.
It's better to talk to someone who wants to listen than someone that you just kind of grab in a corner at a party and say, let me tell you about my passion, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Although I had a mom stop me yesterday. She's brand new. They're missionaries and they just came back to the States, and she started doing some research with her son, her 3-year-old, who they thought is autistic. And she just started telling me all this stuff that they've been doing with him. I think she just needed someone to talk to. And it was so validating with some stuff that I'm doing with my son, that I've been trying to convince my husband is real and is working. And I didn't say anything about it. She just came up and started talking to me, and it was all the things that I needed to hear right at that moment with my son. And so
good.
It was really nice. They found out the home that they were living in while they were missionaries had lead in it.
Oh.
And so now they're doing, chelation with him to get all the heavy metals out of his system. And they're seeing improvements. And my 14-year-old is autistic, which I know he is. We've gone through years of therapies, but he's really sensitive to anything that might cause heavy metal buildups. Like if he takes a multivitamin for a couple of days, he can't tie his shoes.
Oh,
I
Wow.
mean, when I say he's high functioning autistic, like he breaks dairy cows. I mean,
Mhm.
he's in algebra. I mean, there's no issues like that. And I mean, to
Yeah.
watch him like sit there and struggle to put his shoes on because he took a multivitamin for a few days. So
Uh-huh.
I have him on titrated cilantro right now to try to pull the heavy metals out of his system. And there are some supplements you can buy, but I wanted to try that one first because it was cheap and I could get it locally. And
Wow. Interesting.
man, oh man, have I seen a difference. And he didn't do it
Mm.
for like 3 days because I've been busy and forgot to remind him. And he like got in a bunch of trouble and got his phone taken away and wasn't feeding the animals. And my husband's going, "What is wrong with this kid?" And I was like, she just came up to me and started talking to me and told me all this stuff. And I was like, oh, I need to
Mm.
get him back on his cilantro. And this is a real thing. You're going through it with your son. And I'm not, because I've been trying to fight doctors for years going, there's something to this that he can't handle, vitamins and probiotics and things like that.
Yeah. Interesting.
So you never know that like who you just need to talk to might have everything that you needed to hear that day.
Yeah. That's absolutely right.
Mm. All right, I drink a lot of water. All my
That's good.
listeners probably think I have a cocktail for every show because you
No,
can always hear my ice clinking.
that's funny.
it's good. What do they call the word? Aesthetics, I guess, is that right? For the
Right.
listeners out there.
Like, no, people, it's not a cocktail. I'm just a health nut. No. Which I guess works for a homesteading podcast.
Right.
Yeah.
So, tell me a little bit about your guys' podcast and like you've had some really awesome people on lately.
Yeah.
Go for it, Jenny.
Tina,
Oh,
what'd you say? Did you say go
we're
for
just
it?
both too polite. So. Okay, I'll start. Yeah. So when we started the loft, it's funny because I had not been a podcast listener, just I hadn't made time for it, and I'm not native to it. I'm too old for that. But then as we started the loft, Jenny's son Noah, who is a podcast producer and he has his own podcast and everything, he's like, Mom and Tina, you guys need to do a podcast with your stuff. And I was like, what? But we did. He got us going, and now Jenny's husband Joel is our producer, and yeah, we drop a weekly podcast every Friday. It's called the Homeschool Loft Cast, and sometimes we just talk to each other about different topics that we know come up, like in our appointments, or we know that homeschool parents are struggling with. And then sometimes we've been able to have guests on. We had you on recently.
Yeah, which
Talk
I
about
didn't even
awesome
realize it
guests.
had aired yet. I found it earlier and threw it up on my stories on Instagram.
Yes, it just did on
Good.
Friday. So I was going to send you the link to that, Cody, but then my grandson. So my life kind of is in and out of people right now. But yeah, I mean, Jenny, can you remember off the top of your head? Because I'll look it up while you're talking. But who are some of the guests that we've been able to have on so far?
You're asking me to remember from the top of my head?
I know you had the guy on from the Great Homeschool Conventions. I thought that was really interesting.
We had, let's see, Dorinda Wilson,
Mhm.
Jamie Erickson.
Ooh.
Who are some people, you guys? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so Jamie Erickson of Homeschool Bravely. You're right, Cody. We had Brennan Dean from the Great Homeschool Convention. Dorinda Wilson's book is amazing, by the way. She's written several, but the 4-Hour School Day is the one that she talked about.
Yes, that is on my list.
I can tell you who we've had.
I was bringing it up too.
Yeah. We have had Todd Wilson of the Smiling Homeschooler. He was the most encouraging for dads. He always is. He's amazing. Israel Wayne, he's a graduate of homeschooling back before it was even legal. His mom homeschooled he and his sisters in Michigan when it wasn't even legal. And his story is fascinating.
Ooh, that's neat.
Yeah. Dr. Jay Weil of Berean Builders not Academy, but Berean Builders Curriculum. Linda Holbar from the Mystery of History. Lots of people. And then local guests. We have a local guy. His name is Mike Smith. He's a mayor of a small town near where we live. And he's a homeschool dad, but he used to be a skeptic. And God got a hold of him, and now he's like an advocate. And so if we have dads wanting to talk about homeschooling, Mike has said, send them my way. Around
nice.
Great.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. I should bring my husband on because he is like
Yeah, you should.
He was the anti homeschooler, and
Mhm.
now he would absolutely not have it any other way.
You know what? I think that's a great thing too for all of us to keep this real is, oftentimes just bringing your family on or people that you know, right? Because this make just cements that. While we hear about people far, we hear about people near to us. We've
Mhm.
had on Noah. Noah's my son, and
Hmm.
he has a podcast. Like he is the podcaster. His story. We share our children's stories as well.
Hmm.
Is hey, how do you feel? You tell us as the one who graduated. You talk about your experience with homeschooling. I mean, that's the
Right.
thing.
I had my kids
And
on in an hour-long episode talking about the benefits of doing 4-H.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, Noah, he just recently got done talking to Robert Bortons on his podcast. I'm excited to hear that one as well. But he has a homeschooling podcast where he's kind of led the way for us. Tina and I were terrified in the beginning kind of to do a podcast because well, we didn't know. So we came with all our notes and all our professionalism things.
Right?
And Noah was like, nope, we're not going to do that. We're just going to have a great conversation and kind of do it like that. And that is what it is. It is a great conversation, isn't it?
Absolutely. I actually, the other night, I needed a podcast really quick. I thought I was going to have a guest and it didn't work out. And I usually release on Tuesdays and Fridays. And it was like Tuesday night. And I was like, I haven't released anything. I don't have anything.
Oh,
Yeah.
And my husband's like, just go record something. And I was like, I don't have anything to say. And I ended up actually writing on the back of my notes right now. I mean, I just did a really quick
Near and dear.
outline. And I thought, well, I'll go in and see like what happens. Like I get a little too scripted on the personal one. So when it's just me. And an hour and a half later, I walk into the bedroom. My husband's already in bed, and he's like, "That took forever." I'm like, "I know, my guest wouldn't shut up." And he's like, "Wait, I thought it was just you." And I was like, "Yeah."
interviewing
Those are the
yourself.
best. Those are the best ones. It's
Yeah.
just, it is, we have so much to say. I mean, this is why we do what we do, right?
Hmm.
There's so much to say. Is it possible to run out of content? I don't think so, right?
No,
There's just so
everything
much
is
to be said.
content.
Everything is content. Yep.
It's nice having a homestead and having the homesteading theme to my stuff because everything. I mean, I just take my phone with me and snap pictures, and I have pictures of my kids, and I have pictures of pigs, and it's all there.
Yeah. Right. What else do you need?
So yeah, I mean, I really love I have a lot of listeners that are new to homeschooling because they start homesteading and then they realize that part of being a homesteader, really that self-sufficiency piece is adding in the homeschooling. And so I love sending them in lots of directions because a lot of times with the homeschooling piece, I'm giving support and more technical ideas like how to teach a science topic. And I love that you guys are putting something out there that gives that full picture of how to homeschool.
Yeah.
And
I
this,
think it should be
yeah,
said that Tina has been just kind of had this idea of we talk to people from different states and kind of their homeschooling laws and what that
yes.
looks like. And I think that is just because we have listeners from all over. You never know where people are
Mhm.
listening in from. So that's been a great thing as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on a project with someone who lives in Missouri right now. And she's like, it's a planner type thing, but a little different. And she's like, okay, we have to make sure we have room for the moms to keep track of the hours every day. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like the hours? I
Yeah.
mean, just round it up, like an hour and a math. And she's like, no, we have to actually do it
Yeah.
by the minute.
Yeah.
And I was like,
And
okay,
they have to
well,
do like 1,000 hours and 600 or something have to be in like the core subjects. I mean, it's
yeah.
very tricky.
I couldn't imagine that because our homeschool laws are literally you should teach your kids the core subjects. That is the law in Idaho. You should teach your kids the whole core
Yeah.
subjects. And I don't have to check in with anybody. Like the
Mhm.
school, I mean, the only reason the state knows we exist is because my husband, being a veteran, we have government insurance, you know?
Everyone's going to be moving to Idaho pretty quick here. Total.
Right.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
and even
Wisconsin's pretty good. We file this one little form
Yeah.
every fall,
Mhm.
but it doesn't even have our kids' names on it, let alone anything
Oh,
else about them.
good.
It has our name and address, and then I think this is ironic in our current day and age, but it says which of the two genders are your children. That's the only thing we have to say.
Yeah.
Oh,
We
funny.
file it, and then we're left alone. Like literally nobody has a legal right to ask us anything. And there are some certain parameters, but they're common sense things. Kind of like you said, like you should provide basic
Yeah.
education in the core subjects. But that's it, you know? And so when we talk to people from these more highly regulated states, or, you know, they try to say, yeah, we only have to do this and this and this and this and this, and only one standardized test every 3 years. I'm like, oh my word, move.
Right. In Oregon, they didn't say like how many hours you had to teach. They didn't say what you had to teach. But I think it was third and fifth grade, they had to do standardized testing. But you could say when third and fifth grade were for these kids, there was like an age bracket. We never actually got to that because we actually homeschooled through a charter when we were in Oregon. So the charter handled all of that. But and it wasn't like if your kids failed that, they come and pull them out of your house or something, it was, I think they said, if they failed 3 years in a row, then they may assist with guidance in teaching or something like that. I was like, well, that's not, it's a little intrusive, but not terrible. I've,
Yeah.
so me having to prove that I do 600 hours of core subject a year, that's intrusive.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people, another thing to the benefit of this is we get the conversation going with these people. So many people are just scrambling to homeschool their kids that laws and regulations in other states, the thought that it's different somewhere else, it's not even a thing in their mind, right?
Yeah.
And so, but let it be said that these are important things that we should all be aware of. But it can be so confusing, when you're going through all of it. What does this even mean? And on our website, Tina has just done this excellent researching job and writing of all of the homeschool laws in Wisconsin that are, that people can understand. And then from that, I think that helps them then to look at what Tina's written and then go forth from there and then really study it for themselves and understand. And at least that's our hope, that they're digging deeper. And
no, that's great. I do something similar for people who are starting homestead food businesses. I used to work in food safety, and so I will like download the cottage laws and write it in layman's terms to meet what they're trying to do. So I get it.
Yeah.
Like you can and should link to the actual law so people and encourage people to go read it for themselves. But yeah, legalese is not written in a way that the average person can understand. My daughter works for a lawyer part-time right now, and she always tells me how funny it is the way that he has to write stuff. So,
oh yeah, it doesn't even make any sense. And that was what I used to do in the food plants, is try to figure out how to make this stuff legible for hundreds of people that have maybe an 8th grade education.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
So, but yeah, I think, I look at some of these laws and I think that it's less about making sure the kids are properly educated and more about making it such an imposition for the parents that they don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Well, I would agree. My husband was headhunted by a couple different companies when the girls were school age. And the first thing was, what are the homeschool laws like in the states where these businesses were? And we didn't move because there are very few states that are as low regulated as Idaho, and then Wisconsin I would put in the very next tier because we do have to file a form, right? But most of them, there's 6 or 7 hoops or more to jump through. And so I know not everybody has a choice. They can't just pick up and move.
Right.
But I always tell people, if you want to homeschool and if you can move, pick a low reg state. And then you have to pay attention to the legislation to make sure it doesn't increase, but start someplace where you're going to have, if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Even like when we were in Oregon, we went through a charter, but the charter was put in place as like a loophole. And so it was like actually great. It was all homeschool parents who were running it. And then we had one well, we had like one official a principal, and then she'd hire teachers. And the teachers really just like the kids would take pictures of what they did that week, only one thing that they did that week, and send them in to her. And I was like, and then, she, I read a sentence about it, but at the time they were second graders. So yeah, their sentence was like, I did math,
Right.
That's
And
pretty unusual for that kind of setting. That was a blessing for you because
it
mostly they're
really was.
Yeah.
And even when we first moved, because we still owned our house in Oregon, we were able to continue to go through them. And I mean, we got $800 a semester per kid to buy curriculum. The only thing they wouldn't cover was religious curriculum, but we could buy that ourselves and they would count it towards their units. They just couldn't pay for it.
Oh.
And I was like, great. Like, so I'd use the money to buy like laptops and stuff and then use our own money to buy, and honestly, Alpha Omega Publishing, they have great programs, but they're Christian based. So we'd have to buy their English program or something, but they didn't care. It was still English. So
yeah.
Interesting.
But yeah, I couldn't imagine trying to, deal with all the pressures of homeschooling, especially when, like we have 6 kids.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine just keeping track to that extent. Like it would be exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I always tell people if you can avoid Pennsylvania and New York, probably for multiple reasons, but for the homeschool law as well, those are the most draconian. Like Missouri's seems simple compared to Pennsylvania and New York. They're really bad.
That's a bummer. I spent some time on a Mennonite dairy farm in Pennsylvania when I was in high school. I did a summer there. And it was such a neat rural place. And then you just have those 2 big towns that just ruin it for everybody.
Yeah.
I grew up in California, so I know what it's like to have just 1 or 2 big towns that ruin it for everybody.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's true. That's true. We love history in our family, and my husband was like, "Let's move to Pennsylvania." I'm like, "Nope, don't even ask me that one."
No. I took the kids there recently. We did Gettysburg and stuff. It was a blast, and we're good.
Yeah.
Good place to visit, not live.
So is there anything that you'd really like to tell newer homeschool families? Like some advice that you might have, or?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to what I was kind of talking about before, and that is not so much to get caught up on all of the curriculum. That's the side. That's to the left and to the right. Your main focus it's always going to be your children. And it's always going to be the atmosphere in your home. What is that like? It's always going to be starting with the child and believing, because you're the mom or the dad, that you have enough. You're equipped. You are equipped to look at your child and know what comes next, because these are not little empty vessels to be filled up. They are already born with what they need. Our job is to sort of stand aside, provide a buffet for them of all of the things that you see fit for your family, and allow them and their little minds to get after it. Because they, as Charlotte Mason would say, are born persons. And so that little person, and I see this with my own son, with Noah, he was born a history lover. It's really true. And to this day, at 21, almost 22, he still follows that. With Madeline, born musically gifted, still musically gifted. It's incredible. So we don't want to squelch that with our talkie and our lecturing and all of our things. We want them to go the way that has already been instilled in them. So that's my advice.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, I would reiterate that the foundation is your relationship with your kids and getting to know who they are as people. And, there's nothing wrong with using curriculum, but it shouldn't be the first thing, like Jenny said.
Oh, I agree.
Curriculum is a tool. It should never be a master. It's like, think of it like I could try to pound a nail into my wall with my hand, but maybe a hammer would make that job easier, right?
Yeah.
Curriculum helps too. It's really heavy.
Well, there you go, right? Yeah. That math book that you never actually used, right, can be really good. So it's a tool. It's okay. And, if you don't have time to make your own unit studies or this, that, or the other thing, who has time? Use what's out there, but use it as a tool, and don't let it ever control you, and choose what you use based on the kids you have, how they're really wired, not some idealized child that doesn't exist in your home, but you just have this vision for, and because that's just going to damage your relationship.
Oh yeah. I don't think in 7 years we have ever reached the end of a curriculum.
Sure. And then I would add to that too, that these ideas that we're talking about now, right? That sounds easy, but we've all been indoctrinated through a system to think otherwise. So what we want to do is remind ourselves constantly that we're to still be filling ourselves up as the mom and dad and watching how we learn. How do we learn? Ask yourself this question. Would I like to do that? Is that something that I would like to do? Would I like to fill in the blanks in a workbook? The answer is going to be no for many adults, right? Would I like to sit there for 5 hours and work on one math problem until I get it straight? Probably not. And when we understand,
unless you're a nerd like me, but
unless you're one of those nerds, but when we understand how we learn, I think we can really easily bring it back to life and say, actually look at the child and how is the child going after, how would the child learn the best?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
as we're kind of coming to the end of our time, I ask all of my guests, what does keep growing mean to them?
All right, you start, Jenny.
Okay. Keep growing means never, ever stop going after the excitement and the joy of what's in this life for yourself. Never get so caught up that you forget who you are as a learner, as a grower. You constantly go after it. It's not just your children, but it's you. Continue to grow, try new things, practice that. I would say really quickly that when I was for a quick minute, I worked in the heart unit, and that always gives you a different view when you're in the healthcare field, that when you're a patient, you're reminded what that's like. So I think to keep growing, that's also beautiful, because we expect our children to grow and we tell them that. But when we do it and when we get after it, it's a good model for them as well.
Absolutely. I really love that, modeling growth.
Actually, I was thinking about that too, that if we are always learning and letting our kids see that we're learning and improving and researching different things, that's the very best way we encourage them to be lifelong learners, because we're the model, right? So if we tell them, go learn about the American Revolution, but we don't care to improve ourselves, we're a bad model. But if we can continue to keep growing in our own stuff, even if it's a different topic, it'll be a good example for our kids.
Oh yeah, I really like that. We've actually been, the kids have been wanting read alouds lately, even my older ones. Yeah. And so instead of, we're reading one, it's a Tuttle Twins book right now, just something that they get a good story and learn a little something out of it. But then I'll also just randomly read a chapter to them out of one of the textbooks I'm reading. And I say textbooks, they're nonfiction. Some of them are used as textbooks, but some of them aren't. And on like food history and stuff like that. And they are just, it's creating so many more questions, and it's awesome. So I like that, and encouraging the kids and modeling that growth.
Yeah.
I tried to do that the other day. I tried to have an unschooling week, see how it worked. And I was much more excited than they were.
Yeah.
So you're like, Mom's going to leave us alone all weekend. And I was like, everybody have something to teach us at the end of the week. And I was the only one who had something to teach, but they learned what I wanted. So, well, thank you guys so much for coming on. Where can everybody find you guys?
Our website is homeschoolloft.com or .org. Wait a minute. Let me look really quick.
It's .com.
It's .com. Sorry. Yeah. Some of them are .org. Anyway, homeschoolloft.com. They could text or call us there. They could email us, especially if they're in this area. But our consultations, we can do phone and Zoom consultations too.
That's what I was going to ask if you guys did distance ones, because that's really, that's such a great support.
Yep. So we would be happy to talk to people in other states.
Sure.
Wonderful. Well, thank you guys. And I love the conversation that you guys are having, and I hope you continue to have it.
Yeah. Thank you, Cody.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining me today at the Homestead Education, and I hope that I have given you something to think about this week. To help others find me, please comment and leave a review on your favorite podcast player. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Homemade Revelation. Do you have questions that you'd like answered or just want to say hi? Please email me at hello@thehomesteadeducation.com. Until next time, keep growing.